Welcome to Channel 8 News. I'm Paul Cannon.
And I'm Anthony Williams. Let's throw it over to our weather forecaster, Reagan Porter. Reagan?
Thanks, guys. If you've been out and about this morning, you know that it is freezing. So make sure if you go outside, you have your gloves, you have your hats, you have your scarves, and definitely those heavy coats. As we look over to the trees, you can see a little bit of wind blowing. So make sure you have those accessories to keep yourself warm, especially if you're walking to class. Will this freezing weather turn into snow? And will those Patriots be able to have their victory party for winning the Super Bowl? I'll have more for you later on. Back to you guys in the warm studio.
This is Channel 8 News, KKSU LP. For Manhattan and Riley County. From Kansas State University, this is Channel 8 News.
Welcome to Channel 8 News. I'm Paul Cannon.
And I'm Anthony Williams. Coming up on today's show, we welcome the Executive Director of the Governor's Council, and we will take a look at the new blood drive that's attracting students to Aggieville.
But first, the news. Fire crews responded to a structural fire on Friday night, which resulted in thousands of dollars worth of damage. Around 8:30 p.m., the Manhattan Fire Department was dispatched to 801 Potawatomi Avenue for a report of a structural fire. Upon arrival, crews found a one-story residence with fire and smoke showing on the exterior wall of the structure, as well as a shed. The fire reached a second alarm before it was contained in 30 minutes. The residence was occupied at the time of the fire, and all occupants were able to exit without injury. The single-family structure suffered an estimated loss of $50,000 to the house and $3,000 to its contents. The fire cause is under investigation at this time.
The Riley County Police Department said on Friday that at approximately 2 p.m., missing 37-year-old Joel C. Groniga from Manhattan was located in Salina. This announcement came hours after the department reported that he was considered missing and possibly at risk. Groniga was found by the Salina Police Department after officers received a tip sparked from a Facebook post about the missing man. He was found not to be in danger and with no injuries, however, suffering from vehicle trouble.
Free beer. Two words that never fail to perk up a college student's ears, but even freebies can come with a cost.
A recent charity event had the idea to give away free beer for a donation.
That was the original idea, but as Katie Johnston reports, it didn't quite turn out that way.
Many people don't know how to donate blood or even where to start, but Aggieville made it a little bit easier by hosting their very first ever blood donation on January 27th here in the Cat House Lounge.
The planners of the inaugural blood drive anticipated harvesting 45 pints of blood, but as you can see, they surpassed expectations.
We have had a huge turnout as far as our volunteers and our donors go.
So much that the waiting time for walk-ins lasted over an hour.
As far as we can research, and the Red Cross's research also, this is the first blood drive for Aggieville.
I was actually down at Radina's, and one of the baristas said, hey, you can get some free coffee, and I wasn't going to pass that up.
The original intent for the Pint for Pint blood drive was to exchange 1 pint of blood for a pint of beer, but the organizers reconsidered giving a pint of free beer to someone who was down a whole pint of blood. Despite being denied a free beer, community members still endured the wait by donating their time and blood in exchange for free coffee from Radina's or Blueston Bistro, or a free pita from Pita Pit.
The blood drive at Cat House Lounge eventually surpassed the goal of 45 pints of blood by harvesting 53 pints.
Was one of those pints yours, Katie?
No, actually, I attempted to donate blood that day, but like I said, the line was nearly out the door. But no worries, Rod Harms did inform me that the Aggieville Business Association does plan to continue hosting an annual blood drive, and I'll make sure to donate next year.
Now we go to Channel 8 News reporter Amy Pond, who is with John Ambrust, the Executive Director of the Governor's Military Council, to talk about the upcoming listening session at Fort Riley and the importance of the military base to Manhattan. Amy?
Thanks, Paul. Hi, John.
Hi, Amy.
Thanks for coming here today.
Oh, you're welcome.
So what kind of things do you do on a daily basis?
Well, it's really varied. I may be either talking to folks in Washington, D.C. about things that affect our military bases, or people in Topeka or around the communities near our 5 major military installations. And I do spend a lot of time on the bases themselves. So it just depends on what the issues are and who I need to work them with.
So who will be affected most by this in the community?
I think that in terms of the listening session, everybody will be affected by what's going on. Over 50% of the people in Gary and Raleigh County that have jobs are those jobs that are related to Fort Riley. So we know that no matter what happens there, whether they go up in numbers of soldiers or down in numbers of soldiers, there's a huge impact.
So what kind of businesses, as you mentioned, will be affected?
I will tell you, it's all businesses. For example, sales tax in Manhattan has increased by $4.4 million per week since 2007, most of that due to the growth at Fort Riley since 2005. So all the retail businesses, there are many contractors in our area that have jobs on Fort Riley. So it's the whole gamut. And I will tell you, I've heard several just the other day that had no clue they would be impacted, that told me half of their employees are a direct result of Fort Riley.
Wow.
Yeah, it's large.
So it does affect more than just Manhattan. So how does it affect the whole state?
Well, yeah, it affects the region around Fort Riley very significantly. But in terms of the whole state, Wichita, for example, comes to the Fort Riley area to interview people for jobs. There's about $7 billion per year that's put into the state economy because of the military, and Fort Riley is a huge factor in that number. So again, it has to do with jobs, it has to do with taxes, has to do with everything economically that you can imagine.
And so what can be done by the community?
Well, the big thing that's coming up is February 9th at 3:30, starting at 3:30 in the Junction City Convention Center. And the biggest thing that they can do is attend this listening session. We will be talking about how we are supporting Fort Riley, but to demonstrate the impact, the key is to have a lot of people there, because they're actually going to count the number of attendees, and that will allow them to determine how important it really is to the community.
All right. Well, thanks for your time. Now back to Paul.
Thanks, Amy. I can see how Fort Riley has an impact on the economic well-being of Manhattan.
It certainly does. This past year, we have seen a divide between members of the community and police officers around us.
Up next, we'll have a conversation about the controversial topic between the Black Student Union and the K-State Police Department. Stick with us.
Have you ever wanted to be on radio? You can by signing up to join the Wildcat 91.9. The station is open to all students, no matter what your major is. The best part? You can get experience right away as well as no sign-up fees. You can be a DJ for the alternative and hip-hop and rap rotation. Or report for news and sports. Wildcat 91.9, KSDB, Manhattan.
Welcome back to Channel 8 News. I'm Paul Cannon.
And I'm Anthony Williams. Police are investigating a sexual assault between a 19-year-old female and an older male. The two are believed to know each other, but further information has not been released in an attempt to protect the victim's privacy.
A construction worker at the Veneer Football Complex was taken to Mercy Regional Hospital Monday morning. According to Major Don Stubbings of the K-State Police Department, a concrete form fell onto the worker, but injuries were not considered life-threatening. Since the Ferguson protests, there have been a lot of questions surrounding local police departments and local minority organizations.
Channel 8 News reporter Daniela Martinez Serrano joins us with Justice Davis, president of the Black Student Union, and Major Don Stubbings of the Kansas State University Police Department. Daniela?
Good morning. I am joined by Major Don Stubbings from the K-State Police Department and Justice Davis from the Black Student Union. So the events of Ferguson, Missouri have caused a lot of tension between police departments and minority groups. So my first question is to you, Major Stubbings. When an incident occurs with a minority, what steps can a police take in order to prevent another Ferguson from occurring?
I think the key in any situation is the communication. And when you have good communication and engagement with your community, then you can go a long way to prevent incidences.
Okay, and my question is for you, Justice. What conversation would you like to have with police in order to prevent Ferguson from occurring again?
I think an important conversation to have is just for minorities or anybody from that matter to be able to express how they feel and what kind of things that they deal with in their communities, and for officers to be aware of the situations and different perspectives of people, so therefore they can be engaged and have that communication and dialogue.
Okay, and the city of Ferguson, Missouri has seen a lot of structural damage due to violent protests. So when one is upset with the way an event is being handled, what type of demonstrations can one participate in that don't involve a violent protest?
I definitely would say that like we said before, the dialogue happens. Like in Manhattan, we can engage with our officers, and even the Raleigh County Police Department, we've been talking to them. And I do want to say that the majority of the protests that have happened and occurred in Ferguson weren't all violent, so it's just important to have that communication first.
Okay, and my last and final question for you both is, what type of communication needs to happen between police departments and local minority groups, and sort of have a plan of action in order to prevent another Ferguson in the future?
You know, just as after Ferguson, there was several events on campus that we had here, and they contacted us, and they had a vigil and some very peaceful and organized events, and that's the key, is, you know, when you communicate, talk about what you want to do, and have that engagement with your community, they're often very peaceful.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, Major Don Stubbings, for coming in, and thank you, Justice Davis. Paul and Anthony, back to you guys.
Thanks, Daniela.
Wow, I wish I could see how diversity affects police departments in other areas.
Well, Paul, today is your lucky day. We're going live to Columbus, Ohio with the Division of Police Commander Alex Bennon. Channel 8 reporter Stephanie Peterson has the interview.
Thanks, guys. So, Anthony, what are your specific duties?
Can we take that one? Good morning. My specific duties are I am the commander of the Communications Bureau, and that's basically all phone calls and radio traffic, 911 calls. And as part of that, we have significant contact with the community. We are the first person most citizens speak with when they need the police.
So what type of diversity issues do you experience in Columbus?
Well, in relationship to the police department, we work very hard to get our agency to represent the people that we serve. We have approximately within Columbus a 28% Black or African American population, and our agency has approximately 9% male Black sworn personnel and 2.5% female Black personnel. So we are always recruiting to try to represent the community that we serve. We also have issues that we continually work on, and that is communication with all aspects of the community.
What do you think is the future of police relations with minorities?
Well, the future of communications with any group of people, regardless of their, of their origin or their beliefs, is it has to be done in an honest, open, respectful manner with dialogue. And that dialogue can be formal, can be informal, can run now as things have changed. That honest dialogue can take place through social media sometimes, face-to-face. Some of the strongest relationship building that we have, though, is face-to-face, honest dialogue that's respectful and explores the areas that we're curious about. One good example is we have a significant outreach program to educate the community about their police department, because that's who we work for. And we have the ABCs of policing. That way people aren't in a vacuum as to how and why we operate. There's several others, but what else are you curious about with our organization?
That's actually all the time that we have for. Thanks so much for joining us, Alex. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing the unique perspective, Commander Bennon.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll see why students are staying the night in Fiedler Hall.
And the Sunset Zoo will pay us a visit. Stay tuned.
Non-traditional students are an important piece of K-State heritage. Some of these students are veterans returning back to the civilian population after serving in our armed forces. This can be a troubling time for these veterans. Trying to adjust back to civilian life can be a hard obstacle to overcome. The Veterans Center at K-State helps these students with this transition. Through counseling and other means, these veterans can find the help they need for this transition at the K-State Veterans Center. The center is located on the ground floor of the Student Union just inside Salsaritas.
Welcome back to Channel 8 News. I'm Paul Cannon.
And I'm Anthony Williams. We join Channel 8 News reporter Brendan Mentz with the instructional designer of the Information Technology Assistance Center, Ben Ward, and event coordinator, Nathan Bean. Brennan?
Thanks, Anthony. So Ben, tell us about this big event that we have going on this weekend.
Starting this Friday, we're going to have the first invitational K-State Game Jam, where we're going to gather together programmers, artists, game designers, musicians, and spend 48 hours in a game competition, building games.
So is this primarily a student-run, student-based event?
It's primarily the events for students. It's primarily run by students. It's a chance for them to get together and to collaborate and to make a finished video game based on a theme that's revealed on the opening night.
So are there any other schools that are expected to be involved besides K-State?
Yes, we've invited schools across campus. We have colleagues from Texas A&M and their live lab coming up. We have some students coming up from Oklahoma. So we do have a fairly wide draw.
We even have a student coming from California.
Very interesting. So where can we get more information about this event?
You can find information on the Game Development Club's website, which is gdc.cis.ksu.edu.
And this event is scheduled to take this week at Fiedler Hall, correct?
Yes.
Excuse me, this weekend?
6th, 7th, and 8th of February.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Now we'll go back to Paul and Anthony.
We now are going to take a break.
Wildcat 91.9. The station is open to all students, no matter what your major is. The best part, you can get experience right away as well as no sign-up fees. You can be a DJ for the alternative and hip-hop and rap rotation. Or report for news and sports. Wildcat 91.9, KSDB, Manhattan.
I'm Maureen. May.
And we're four of the members of On the Spot Improv Club. We do everything improvised.
Completely live. We're so good at group thing. We all just say a word and everyone will know what I'm thinking.
Brownie Thompson. If you change your word, then we don't know what you're talking about.
Improvise.
Okay.
One more time. Ribbon.
I don't understand how am I supposed to know what you guys are gonna think?
Welcome back to Channel 8 News. I'm Paul Cannon.
And I'm Anthony Williams.
We're now joined by our weather forecaster, Reagan Porter. What's happening outside, Reagan?
Thanks, guys. Let's first take a look at our national weather map. We're going to see here up in Seattle area, it's going to be 53 degrees. Now moving lower to the south in Los Angeles, we're going to see 74 and sunny. And as we move over to Dallas and over in Georgia and Florida, that warm weather is going to stay, but not for very long. Up in Denver, it's going to be 29 degrees. And over as we move through the Midwest to Chicago, it'll be a little bit chillier. In Chicago, we'll have 22 degrees today, right now. And as we end on New York, we'll also see 41 degrees, and that will not stay the same. So now as we take a deeper look into the national weather map, we'll see that it's cloudy up in Seattle, and as I said before, sunny and 74 down in Los Angeles. And as we move over towards the south, the sun is trying to peek through, but it does not quite get there, and that will not stay the same as we move on later on this Wednesday. Up in Chicago, it's going to be cloudy and the sun is trying to peek through. Also in New York, and that definitely changes as temperatures will drop on Thursday. So now we're here in Denver, and as we move through the Midwest over to Chicago, later tonight we will see some more snow. Even New York will see some more snow after that heavy snow that they got a couple of days ago. And now as we go to Kansas, we will take a look at Shawnee here. It's going to be very snowy, and as we move through Kansas, there will be less inches, starting with 5 inches over here, going down to 1 inch, and now there's no snow over in Harvey County. As our 5-day weather forecast, we are going to see on Wednesday, it's going to start at 23 degrees. That's today. It's going to snow out later today, and as we move through the week, it will be sunny, and the temperatures will rise. Look at that, 68 degrees. You can get out and about and do whatever you want. So I'll toss it back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Reagan. Zaldi DeUnion joins us now for sports.
Zaldi, both the men's and women's teams had a busy week, didn't they?
Yes, Paul, they did. However, for one side, it was not a great week. But let's get to it. We'll start with the men's team as they hosted the West Virginia Mountaineers last Tuesday. And unfortunately, the game was not pretty at all. We'll pick it up early in the first half for the Wildcats as Marcus Foster takes in the pass from Wesley Iwundu to give the Wildcats the lead. We'll get to that game right now. You see the tip-off, and like I said, we'll pick it up early in the first half. Here is Marcus Foster taking in the pass from Wesley Iwundu for the slam, extending the Wildcats lead. Next possession, Javon Thomas gives it to Nino Williams, who hits that trademark jump shot to extend the Wildcats lead. But the Mountaineers would eventually come back. Here's Malik Ayers early in the second half. And later on, Marcus Foster hits a 3 to bring the Wildcats closer, but unfortunately, it was not enough as Kansas State loses to West Virginia 65-59. Marcus Foster finished with 15 points. Now, the Wildcats later on traveled to Lawrence this weekend to face the 9th-ranked Kansas Jayhawks, and unfortunately, it was the same story as the Kansas Jayhawks defeated the Wildcats 68-57. Thomas Gibson scored 19 points and grabbed 7 rebounds in the loss, and they faced Texas Tech on the road later on today. To women's hoops, we go as the Lady Wildcats hope to snap their 4-game skid, taking on Oklahoma State last Wednesday, and it was a thriller. We'll pick it up late in the game. Here's Haley Tejada with the layup to tie the game at 41. 2 minutes later, Breonna Lewis hits the lay-in, and she finished with 12 points. The game goes into overtime, and in overtime, you see Lewis again getting the feed, extending the Wildcats lead by 4. Oklahoma will tie the game away, however. Here's Haley Tejada making her second free throw to give the Wildcats the lead, and the Cowgirls have 4 seconds to take it the length of the court. Here's Roshunda Johnson driving before dumping it to Lakota Beatty, who hits the desperation 3 at the buzzer, and Oklahoma State thinks they won. However, the shot was just half a second too late. So while the The Wildcats did pull out the win against Texas Tech as well. So the Wildcats women's side doing well. Men's side, not so much. We'll see if they can turn it around.
Well, we sure hope so. Thanks, Zoldy.
Reagan Porter joins us after the break for one last look at the weather.
We'll be right back.
Non-traditional students are an important piece of K-State heritage. Some of these students are veterans returning back to the civilian population after serving in our armed forces. This can be a troubling time for these veterans. Trying to adjust back to civilian life can be a hard obstacle to overcome. The Veterans Center at K-State helps these students with this transition. Through counseling and other means, these veterans can find the help they need for this transition at the K-State Veterans Center. The center is located on the ground floor of the Student Union just inside Salsaritas.
Welcome back to Channel 8 News. I'm Paul Cannon.
And I'm Anthony Williams. Let's take one last look at the weather with our weather lady, Reagan Porter. Reagan?
To recap, it is supposed to snow today, but it's going to get a lot better throughout the week and 68 on Saturday. What do you guys plan to do?
I might just have a little bit of, just relaxing in the sun, maybe get a hammock, maybe throw a Frisbee or something like that.
I think I'll throw football with my roommates and just chill out in the city park.
Absolutely. Gonna take advantage of that beautiful weather. I don't know. Maybe use some old stadium for soccer.
Kanza, go on a hike.
Kanza's good.
Get a little exercise in.
Nature is a beautiful thing, let me tell you. And Kanza, of course, is one of my favorites.
Same.
I do have to admit, the first time I was there, I apparently missed the signs, so I got off the track. Well, that's all we have for today.
For Channel 8 News, I'm Paul Cannon.
Enjoy the rest of your day.